Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the fourth and final panel of our Parental Conference 2022. I am Grace Victoria, Senior Curriculum Specialist from PCF's Professional and Education Development Division, and I will be your moderator for this panel. This afternoon, we are delighted to have three distinguished speakers who are excited and geared up to share with us how we can harness technology to educate our little ones. Our first speaker for this panel is Dr. Penny Tok. Hi, Dr. Penny.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Dr. Penny is a chartered psychologist and director of her very own practice, Dr. Penny Tok Psychology. She has over 20 years of experience as a psychologist and lecturer in Singapore and abroad. Dr. Penny specializes in diagnosis, therapy, and training at her center. She has a special interest in mental health support in the neurodiverse population. Today, Dr. Penny will touch on purposeful and meaningful screen time and how parents and caregivers can utilize and find a balance between using technology and appropriate screen time. Our next speaker that I am happy to introduce is Dr. Philip Towndrow. Hi, Dr. Philip.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Dr. Philip is a Senior Education Research Scientist at the Center for Research in Pedagogy and Practice, Office of Education Research, NIE, NTU. Dr. Philip has a degree in Doctor of Education from Durham University in England. His main research interests are teachers' professionalism and learning and communication in the digital age. He is the author of over 100 publications. His hobbies are walking, hiking, and digital storytelling. During this panel discussion, Dr. Philip will talk about digital storytelling resources. He will share how to use digital media such as photos, film clips, sounds, music, and words to begin storytelling in meaningful ways. Dr. Taundraw will also explain why digital storytelling is a powerful medium and illustrate his points with readily available and easy-to-use tools and resources. Last but not least, we have Ms. Ng Su Chia, PCF's very own Learning Design Manager.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Su Chia.
Good afternoon, Grace.
Su Chia has more than 15 years of teaching and e-learning design experience. As PCF's learning designer, her passion for teaching and education technology amalgamates into engaging learning experiences. She designs her work to spark curiosity and a love for learning. This afternoon, Su Chia will discuss how parents can spark their children's interest in learning through purposeful use of technology and the modeling of appropriate technology usage habits. Su Chia will debunk the popular belief that immersive learning is often associated with serious gaming and the use of sophisticated tools. She will demonstrate how role-playing and storytelling can be carried out at home as an immersive and engaging learning activity. As our speakers are sharing their discussions, may I invite you to drop any questions that you may have for them into the chat. We will attempt to answer your questions in the Q&A segment later. Without further ado, let's warmly welcome our first panel speaker, Dr. Penny Tok. Over to you, Dr. Penny.
Thank you, Grace. Let me share my screen. And I do apologize in advance. I thought that my voice would be fully back by today, but still not quite. So I apologize. But yes, okay. So today I'll be talking about purposeful and meaningful screen time. And I mean, just looking at the news over the last couple of years, and I think particularly since COVID, you'll see all these news articles, and this is just limited to a quick 5-minute Google search that I did about articles that have come up recently. So you'll see it's like what guidelines or new guidelines have come up now with regard to screen time exposure. And that has now, sorry about my slides, that has now led to the new 24-hour activity guidelines for early childhood. And you can easily, anyone who is interested can easily access this. You can do a quick Google search, or you can even just go to KK Women's and Children's Hospital, and the guidelines are there. This is a long process that the Medical Council has taken together with pediatrics, and just looking at international standards as well as the Singapore context about what would be useful guidelines for parents here. So I won't go into much detail because you can just easily hop onto the website. But you'll see, for example, for toddlers, accumulate at least 180 minutes of physical play. For preschoolers in the next column, similarly, 180 minutes. I definitely don't have that same level of energy as the kids do. But the more the better. And recreational screen viewing time is limited to less than 1 hour. So I'm not one of those parents or professionals that will go, oh, no, screen time, not at all. I think it's really all about finding that balance. And it's a bit ironic that I'm right now talking to you about purposeful and meaningful screen time. And my children are outside in the lounge watching TV because we need to keep them quiet while I'm doing this. So it's a bit of an irony that now they're watching, I don't know what they're watching, but their fathers got them on TV just so that they'll be quiet for my section today. And then after this, they'll take a break while, the rest are speaking. And then towards the end Q&A, we've already timed it. They'll go back on the screen so that they'll be quiet again. Right, so that's what I want to talk about today. So we know different people, different ideas from an educational point of view. So then the question becomes, okay, so from a psychological point of view, then what do we think? What does psychology think about screen time? So just to really summarize some of the things that are out there right now, because you look at the different associations, Singapore Psychological Society has their views and all the different ones around the world. So let's look at the negative side. Okay, so the not so good things, we know that physical health, motor skills. Kids are meant to be out there playing. They're meant to be running around. If I'm on the screen all the time, the only motor skill I'll be doing is if I'm holding the phone, that's about all the muscle skills I'm getting. Strength, agility, and also eyesight. You can see that, especially if they're on a small device like the phone, it's very near their eyes. So then we know that, Singapore already has one of the highest rates of myopia in the world. So we don't want to get that worse. So we need to be mindful of that. Studies have consistently shown that children who spend a lot of time on their screens actually develop smaller vocabulary. They're not very good at problem solving. And then the last part, attention span is a bit shorter because I'm constantly entertained. And then when they're bored, they don't know what to do when they're bored because they're so used to having the screens. Now, but it's also not all doom and gloom. So if I look at the positive side effects, there are research that shows that there are positive influences from screen time. Children these days are so tech savvy, right? My children haven't learned how to unlock my phone yet because everything is by my finger. So they always call it mommy's magic finger, whereas nothing else works. But sooner or later, they'll be able to learn how to bypass all these codes, and then I'll be in trouble, right? They do develop a deeper understanding of a topic, and then they have a larger worldview because, they just go online to get information from anywhere in the world. And we know that teachers at school use, they're very careful with what they use on screen time, but that also enhances the children's learning while they are at school. So we know that there are pros, there are cons, just like everything else around us. So then the question becomes, what exactly is our definition of screen time before we go on any further? So any activity done on an electronic device with a screen, be it a laptop, mobile phones, tablets, standalone PCs, so anything with that screen that they are looking at. So even now, what we are doing, it's screen time. But of course, the screen time then gets divided into different types of screen time consumption. Passive screen time is what my kids are doing now, sitting there watching TV. Them running away when the dinosaur comes out, that still doesn't count as exercise, okay, because it's still very passive. But interactive screen time, passive screen time, they're just sitting, watching. They're not contributing very much to it. Interactive screen time is when they're playing games. So when, like my primary school kid, when he goes, he says, oh, mommy, can I log into Blue Kit? Can I log into, all these activities that the school uses, or even SLS when he goes to access his online learning. My son's Chinese tuition is also online, but that's simply because mommy and daddy are lazy and have no time to bring him to classes, right? So we choose these very carefully, but that's more of an interactive consumption of screen time. Then we have for communication. So of course, the children, the profile of the kids we're talking about today or focusing on are a little bit too young to be using a lot of social media. But as they grow older, that's where they'll be using. My kids use their phones. They're only allowed limited times. If let's say they want to send grandma a message, and then they'll use my phone. They can't spell, so they just use all the pictures and the icons or GIFs and use that for communication. And then as they get older, then it's content creation. Of course, even now, some of the younger kids are getting very good at using it for digital art, or there are lots of apps out there, that they can use and they'll talk about. And I'll leave Su Chia to talk about more, in terms of immersive use. But these are the core things when we talk about screen time. So then the bigger question for today is, what is purposeful and meaningful screen time? So how do we make something, purposeful? So purposeful is when it is conscious. So I'm not just letting them go on the TV or go on the screen and play games for endless amount of time. I'm a bit mindful about the reasons why they're going on a screen. How do I then make it meaningful? So purposeful is with intent. Meaningful is when there's some form of value to it, right? It's not just blobbing, but sometimes blobbing, especially for adults, it can be meaningful. So then it's just all about how do I merge these two and how do I be mindful then when it comes to their use. So consciousness of what they're using, why they're using, and also the value that it might bring to them when they're using it. So the first question then becomes, why are they using their screens to begin with? And one of the things which we want to change is not just looking at screen time, but screen purpose. So there's a purpose for it. And then what exactly is that purpose? Is it educational? Is it because they're bored? For our own sanity? I mean, I definitely will be the first one to raise my hands when I've put my kids on the screen just purely for my own sanity. Right? Today is a rainy day, for example. They're supposed to be out. Football class is cancelled. Everyone is stuck at home and going insane. So sometimes we just need to use that, but again, it's limited use. Or is it supplemental? So I'm talking about a topic and I'm supplementing screen time because of this. So for example, my children were talking about, we've got lots of butterflies laying eggs on our lemon tree. And so then they'll go, but I want to see what does it turn into, after this, what's the next stage? And then I've forgotten my science and I forgot, after the egg, what happens next? What does it look like? But we've looked at the chrysalis and go, is it dead? How long does it take? So then sometimes we use that screen time as a joint family activity to go, okay, mommy's forgotten. Let's go online and see what is the life cycle of a butterfly. It's also very important as part of the purposeful screen time is to think about what device you're using. As I mentioned earlier, if I'm looking at a mobile phone, use it only when you are literally mobile. So when you're out and about, the bus is taking a long time, they're running insane. If you have to put them on the phone, if you have to, then of course use the mobile. But when you're at home, when they have the time, ideal situation for me is always big is better because I'm not straining my eyes, it's further apart and you see the whole picture. Because one of the things about mobile is that everything gives us a very narrow perception of things. So if you can, be mindful of what device the children are on if they're using a screen time, if they're going on screen time. And then choose what material they're watching. Singapore Media Advisory has very good and very clear guidelines. You go on Netflix, it tells you whether it's PG, it's G, or R21. So be very careful about what some kids are watching. I get quite shocked when some of my kids come into my center and then they say, oh yeah, Auntie Penny, have you watched the latest Deadpool? And I'm like, what? You're 6. Even I couldn't stand Deadpool. I literally watched Deadpool for 6 minutes and I turned it off. So we need to be very careful what the kids are watching because even if they don't get nightmares, they can't really process what is going on screen. So content, alpha blocks, number blocks, these might be useful things. And personally for me, as well as professionally, the research has shown if you really need to put or want to use screen time, consider between animation and human actors. So I'm not saying don't watch any animation at all. But if you're trying to find that balance, then, things with human actors in it, a Singapore context, local context or international, it doesn't matter. Some people like to watch Blippi, some watch Mat Yo-Yo. But the thing is, because human actors, you still see the range of facial expression, the pace of what they're watching is much more realistic. And you see that human connection within the characters as well, right? So try to aim for those if you need to select what they're watching. And of course, then it comes down to your own personal family values. A few weeks ago, we were at a party and the adults decided that the kids were driving us insane and now it's time for them to turn on the screens because we delay it as much as possible, but then we couldn't stand it anymore. It's like, okay, adults need a break. You guys can watch. And from afar, I realized that they were watching this show and I thought, it's not too bad. They were building things, it was creating, it was human. But then I stopped to listen carefully. And I didn't like the language they were using. right? So no expletives, but a lot of like, calling each other stupid and dumb. And for me, I mean, some families might be okay with it, but for my husband and I, that we don't appreciate that kind of language, not at this age, right? So for us, that's a no-no. Now, YouTube is amazing. It's got so much content, but in my family, and again, this is a personal thing, we don't do YouTube without supervision because YouTube content can be uploaded by anyone. So sometimes it's the quality, it's bad quality, it's blurry, can't see very well, can't be good for their eyesight. And sometimes it gets a little bit dodgy. It starts off, looks innocent enough. So my kids only get YouTube if I'm sitting there or my husband's sitting right next to them, or we preview what they're watching. And because also YouTube, it stops and then something else automatically starts. I can't control it as much. So I can't be as mindful about what they're watching. So again, you might be okay with it. Maybe you have the parent guide that you put onto YouTube. But personally, for us at home, we don't have YouTube on. So the next mindful thing and purposeful thing is when you use screen time. Long plane rides, definitely go for it. Every single person on the plane is going to thank you for it if they're on the screens. So just think about when you're using it. So, and as I said earlier as well, when you need a break, right? So that again, it's purposeful. You know why they're going on it. What I like to advise people, so it's not a judgment call here, but just a word of advice, is try to avoid using devices at meal times. When they're out and about, when, it's easy because, children just don't have the patience and it's just them, right? It's a developmental thing. They can't really sit still for long. But if you can, really just avoid screen times at meal times, especially if you're out and about, simply because it doesn't give them the opportunity to build and wait. Everything is like they constantly need to be entertained, right? They're not having discussions, you're not looking at things around you. So try to avoid it if you can. But I know that it's very difficult, right? From a personal experience with two very, very active boys, it's really difficult. Now, I just want to share you this personal picture here. So this is pre-COVID, so my kids are a little bit older now. But if you can see from this image here, so you see the two circles here. So we call it our secret pouch. It literally says secret pouch here. We call it our secret pouch because that's where we hide stickers, coloring pencils, anything we hide in there. And then we tell our kids, okay, let's see what secret daddy has put in the pouch. I say daddy because my husband's much better at this than I am. I'm always forgetting to bring things along and then scrambling for stuff. So then you see on the left-hand side, that's where they're coloring, their pages, their sticker books. So that's where we brought on our holiday, right? But then again, the reality is you can look at this guy's face, just see the mischief on his face. And the reality is this doesn't work for long. But we try to bring as much as we can, just so that, again, because when I go back to the hotel room, when we're exhausted, okay, now you can watch your screen. But I can manage how much you're watching because then you're not watching all the time. And just look at my poor husband's face. Right? That can tell you the extent of how exhausted it is with children, and we can completely understand. Right? So just a question about being mindful about what you're using and when. Another way about making screen time purposeful is to make it a whole family activity. So now at home, in my home, we generally don't watch a lot of TV, but when the kids are allowed, so weekdays, they don't watch anything. They know that weekends they get to watch. So then if they're watching TV as well, we don't want the TV on the whole time. So if my kids get a choice, so if we say, okay, kids, it's your turn, you get to choose. Inevitably, it's going to be Camp Cretaceous, right? It's going to be dinosaurs. My house is filled with dinosaurs. So that's their choice. But then when they finish their quota, and if I feel like watching TV that day, then it's, haha, now it's mommy's turn. Mommy gets to watch what I want. You want to watch? You can sit with me. If not, you can go play. But it's my choice. And if I get to watch, generally it's some form of cooking show. Right? It's some form of cooking show. We were so hooked to MasterChef, but because we only watch TV once a week, we were so far behind. We tried to stay away from media just so that we didn't find out who actually won the MasterChef because we were so far behind in terms of watching it. If my husband watches TV, which is very rarely, they all know it's going to be sports. It's going to be some kind of sporting event, right? So then we know that if everyone's watching TV, we try to make it a family event if possible. Right? So usually we make popcorn, we sit, we watch. We don't let the kids watch TV, eat their dinners in front of the TV because, again, we just don't want to build that habit. right? But once in a while, like maybe twice a year, when they're really pitiful and they beg us, please, mommy, please. And then we might allow them to do so. Okay, so one of the things the last few things I wanted to share with you as well is to try to mix it up. So these are my kids reading with grandma. And you can see the younger one's not that interested. He just can't sustain. But then what we try to do is, once when they were interested in Lego, we let them watch the movie. And then with the movie, we got the activity book. So then when they're out, right, in our secret pouch, then we have the activity books with the stickers, with the drawings, the coloring in that they can do. And then we got them the Lego. Right? We got them the Lego set that was related. So again, it's like, oh, they know all the characters. They know Emmett, they know everyone. And then we got them the storybook. So one movie, it just got expanded into so many different things. We read together, they played. So everything else then just comes into play here. And then a few months ago, my older one, the 7-year-old, heard my husband and I talking about the movie we watched. And so he got very interested and he said, oh, mommy, what's Battle of Midway? What is that? So then my husband said, okay, we can watch this together. And so they watched together the greatest events, World War II in color. And so the younger one was not interested at all. He would just sit for 2 minutes and then off he goes with his army toys and then he'll play. But then we made it again. So from watching, and this is also watching, so it's passive screen time as well, right? But then we moved into, there was meaning behind it. We knew why we were doing it. And then I bought my 7-year-old this book, World War II. Because in primary school, they have to bring a book to school for quiet reading. So he loved it so much, he started bringing this book all the time. But then one day he came home and he said, Mommy, can you get me another book? Because this is only World War II. It's got nothing on World War I. And this book is not very good because it doesn't tell me the sequence of the World War. It doesn't tell me what machinery was used, what army tanks, what style, what planes, etc. So then I got him this next book. Mind you, this is such a big, heavy book, but he insists on bringing it to school most days. So luckily, he just goes on the school bus takes him to school, so he doesn't have to carry it all around. But he loves his book so much. So him and his good friend will sit and draw. The only downside I can say to this is that now his Chinese textbook in particular has lots of drawing of army men having fights and wars. Right? That's the downside I found about making this such a purposeful experience. And of course, we then took them to Fort Siloso. Right? So part of the entire package, right? Everything was war. And I guess being boys at this age, that's what they love. So we just cater to the audience, right? And then it became about flags. So now they're learning about flags. They're drawing flags. I am ashamed to say they know flags much more than I do. And then it became national anthems of the year, of the world. So we had to listen to hours of national anthems because these two little guys wanted to listen to it. And then National Day came, so just nice. And they are driving us absolutely bonkers because they keep singing Stronger Together multiple times a day. Putting on their shoes, they're singing. Walking to the school bus, they're singing. Shower time, they're singing. So Taufik Batista is so popular in my house now. It's endless. Okay, so just some final thoughts here. Instead of screen time, think of screen purpose. And then when I talk about the purpose, who's watching, what the audience is, why are they watching? For entertainment, downtime, rest, educational. What are they watching? Is it age appropriate? How long are they watching for? If you have to watch, give them lots of eye breaks. 10, 15, 20 minutes, eye break, play, come back. If you need to put them on the screen or if you want to. And then where are they watching it on? If you're at home, you have access to laptops, desktops, avoid the mobile phone if you can. Okay? That's all. That's all for me. Thank you, Grace. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Penny, for that interesting discussion of positive effects of screen time, being tech savvy and having a larger worldview. I remember when I was teaching and the children were learning about sharks, and having that screen time allowed them to see how sharks move. And suddenly we had such a big view of the world, which they wouldn't have been able to see without that screen time, right? So, and also for the reminder, for parents to think of screen purpose, the what's, whys, and whens of using screen time. So parents, as Dr. Penny shared with us, according to the activity guidelines, most children should be having less than an hour screen time daily. So this will bring us very seamlessly into Dr. Towndrow's sharing next, where we will hear more about digital storytelling resources we can use with our children so that we can make this short time that we have meaningful. So Dr. Taundraw, I would like to invite you for your discussion next. So over to you, Dr. Philip.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Okay. So today I'd like to talk about digital storytelling and digital storytelling resources. And I think my presentation and content follows on from Dr. Penny in many ways. Yeah, I'm interested too in this whole idea of trying to make screen time purposeful and meaningful. But I have a slightly different take on things. And so, this is a good way of maybe introducing some variation, some diversity into our discussion. So let me begin. So I begin too with this whole idea that mobile devices are very common in our lives today. We have our, as we've already learnt, our mobile phones, our tablets, our laptops, our PCs, and so on. But there's an issue, and I think it was partly alluded to by Penny earlier, is that we largely use these devices, I would say, and I don't have any figures to substantiate this, but we usually use these devices in terms of kind of like media consumption. I mean, even Penny's kids are watching TV right now, so they're consuming. It's passive, and they're watching. It's probably good fun, but the issue is that in terms of the concept that was mentioned earlier, content creation, we don't really use these devices very much, especially with young children, to create digital content for ourselves. And I want to spend some time talking about that today. So I'm going to be talking about something that's called digital storytelling. And digital storytelling can be defined as short personal stories created with digital technology tools that are then shared in order to present information, ideas, and opinions on a range of topics and themes. And these tools or elements in digital storytelling are various, and they can be combined in different ways, but they could include film clips, sounds, words, animations, music, and photos that are all brought together in different ways to make and compose digital stories. So I'm going to talk about digital storytelling then, and you will see that I'm going to try and make a distinction as I go along by not just simply making a video about something, but actually telling a story using digital media. And so I make that distinction then between just video making and actually telling stories using digital media. So what does the research show about digital storytelling? Well, it encourages and it supports a whole list of things here that I've mentioned here that I think would be beneficial for anybody that's going through the early stages of learning. So we've got, for example, living and learning together, relationship building, independent learning, creativity, critical thinking, learning through experience, language and communication, personalization, social and emotional learning, information technology skills, of course, and maybe most importantly for us today, fun. So we can use digital storytelling then in all of these different ways, but in order to do that, I think it's important for everybody to know that it can't just be, by accident. It's got to be something that is purposeful, and it's got to be something that is intentional. But if you go about it in a certain kind of way, then these benefits can accrue to you as you're going along. Now, I want to show you an example of a little bit of a digital story that was made by two children and their mother. I don't think I have enough time to show you the whole thing, and so I've got the link here to the video that I'd like to use, and you can follow up on this yourself, but it's called A Day in the Life of Two Singaporean Kids. And what I'd like to do is to just show you a little bit of this so that you can get an idea of what a digital story looks like.
It's a Wednesday today. I am going bowling after school with Yaya and Kai Kai. Mama doesn't play. She said the bowling ball is too heavy for her. We went to the counter to rent the shoes. Both Yaya and I are size 7 and Kai Kai is size 5. We had to put our names into the machine. We were taking 2 lanes there. Yaya was on one lane, Kai Kai and I took the other lane. We went to choose our bowling balls. Kai Kai and I took size...
Okay, let me stop that. All right, okay, and let me go back to my slides. Okay, so that's a day in the life of 2 Singaporean kids, a digital story made by 2 children and their mother. And what I want to say about this is that, you know, we all have this experience of sort of Hollywood and, you know, what Hollywood production looks like. But these kinds of stories that children make, they're not really, you know, sort of meant to be anything that tries to emulate or reproduce, you know, a Hollywood style movie. What's important here is to focus more on the content and the stories that are being told. And so I think that's really important to do that. We're not in the business of making professional movies. We simply want to tell a story using the digital media. So I want to mention very quickly now a couple of mobile editing apps that you can use on a tablet or a mobile phone that you might want to consider using if you were interested in making a digital story with a young child. So the first one is called CapCut, and the second one is called Adobe Rush. What I want to do is to focus a little bit on the first one, CapCut. And CapCut is actually a mobile app that is made by the same people that run TikTok. And so all of the features in CapCut, and there are numerous ones there that I've listed on the right-hand side of the screen, are designed to help you make a movie. So you can cut and paste, you can insert animations, you can crop and resize, you can filter, you can use stickers and music, you can adjust colors, and also you can upload your movies onto social media through the application. And as you can see on the left-hand side here is a couple of screenshots of movies that I've made using CapCut, and it works on the metaphor of a timeline. So basically, you've got the beginning of your video, and then you work towards the end, and you can build it up using different clips of movie. But the idea here is that you just insert them onto a timeline so that one thing comes after the other, and so on. And you can adjust things as you're going along. But the idea is that you can edit, you can make things shorter or longer, you can add music and all these other great effects. And in my estimation, the thing about CapCut is that it's free, and it does a lot of what professional movie makers would want to do as well. But it's simple. You can learn to do this kind of thing, you know, in 20 to 30 minutes. And I'd be happy to, you know, on another occasion, take people through using software like CapCut, because it does take a bit of time to get used to where things are. But once you know what the different icons and buttons do, it's very quick to make a movie. And so, you know, some of these movies here, you know, only take maybe 10 or 15 minutes to make, and that would be something that I think is approachable within the attention time frame of a young child. Now, what else can you do with the movies once you've made them? So some other resources that you might want to think about with digital media are uploading these your videos onto social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. Of course, there's a children's version of YouTube too, called YouTube Kids, and so that might be something that you might want to consider as well. But many people do it. Hundreds of thousands of people do it all of the time, and I think that it gives a certain kind of purpose to digital storytelling if you can share your stories with other people. Some other things that you might want to consider is that there are other kinds of free resources for adults or caregivers and kids to use, especially if you're not really going to go for making all of the resources yourself. So if you're not filming everything yourself, or if you're not making your own music or taking your own photographs, then you might want to find images. And here are the names of 3 websites where you can download free images: Shutterstock, Clip Art Libraries, and the Clip Art World. There might be some places where you want to get music. And of course, there is the YouTube Audio Library, which is a fantastic resource for music and sound effects. Once you start uploading videos onto YouTube and you are a YouTube creator, you can get access to the YouTube Audio Library. And then for if you want to get other kinds of music, there's another website called Bandcamp and another one called SoundCloud, which you might also want to consider using. But I think the thing that is really important with all of these resources is to remember that if you are not creating your own videos or music yourself, then you may need to ask for permission to use a piece of material if you are not the owner of it yourself. So we want to use free resources, but we want to be ethical in our use of media so that we don't upset other people by taking their things and using them without permission. So let me just say this then, is that digital storytelling adventures can be rich learning experiences, and you're really only a few clicks away from making that a reality. So I'd like to encourage everyone to give it a try, and you might want to keep in touch with me if you do get involved in making a digital story. I'm quite happy to either do further workshops or to for you to get in touch with me and to ask me any kind of questions that you want. And if you're interested in doing that, there are perhaps a couple of ways in which you can do it. You can send me an email, and my email address is here. Or if you'd like to know more about my own digital storytelling, I have a YouTube channel, and you can scan this QR code and go to my YouTube channel and see the kinds of stories that I make and tell, and that might be something that can inspire you as well. So I'll just leave that there for a couple of seconds for you to note down that information. You might want to take a photograph of this screen and refer to it later. But please accept my apologies for that slight technical issue there with the video. I hope you got to watch it well. You can always go back and watch it again, watch the full thing and see how those kids enjoyed the rest of their day at the bowling alley. But I'll leave it there, and I'll turn the time over to for questions later, and also to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Philip, for sharing such valuable information about how parents and caregivers and their children can use digital tools to create personal stories, and also the positives of digital storytelling, discovering the world, relationship building, and of course, having fun. So please continue to drop your questions for Dr. Philip and Dr. Penny into the chat if you have anything that you would like to clarify. Now, I would like to welcome Ms. Ng Su Chia, who will be sharing about immersive learning for young children and age-appropriate resources. Over to you, Su Chia.
Thank you, Grace.
Welcome.
I'm certainly feeling a little bit nervous today to present after the presentation of 2 very well-known experts. So thank you so much to the first 2 speakers. I learned from your presentation as well. let me share with you a short story first before I go into my presentation proper. Earlier this week, I was refining my presentation content and my colleague asked, what is immersive learning and how are you going to do immersive learning if you're presenting online through YouTube and through Zoom? So that's the part I was very nervous. So I showed them a map and I kind of make a prediction on Monday that, you know, on the Sunday that when we are presenting, it will rain cats and dogs. So this morning at 6 and 7 a.m., around 7, close to 7 a.m., my colleague texted me and said, you should have just guessed something that would bring us monetary returns, money in turn, instead of just guessing the weather. So it did rain cats and dogs today. So with that, yes, today's presentation on immersive learning will touch on storm chasing, we'll touch about storm. Hopefully I do not jinx the weather for the next few days if you do have some sunny weather activities to come. I'm also going to take a risk today because the title of my presentation today is on immersive learning. I will actually run this session as an immersive learning itself, an experience. So what I'm going to do is in about 5 seconds time, I will show a QR code. If you have got a mobile phone, and I'm inviting colleagues and fellow presenters to whip up your mobile phone as well, to take a snapshot, scan the QR code, all right? And then keep the mobile phone beside you because I'll be referring to it quite frequently for today's presentation, all right? So ready? I'm going to share screen right now. Okay, just a moment. Are you able to see the QR code? Yes? Okay, so I'm going to take a pause a few seconds here. Just scan it. No worries. I will not be taking any snapshot of any identity. Just go with the flow. It's a Sunday. We have only a few hours left before the start of a new work day. So just immerse with me, all right? In this presentation. Okay, so for those of us who didn't manage to scan the QR code, not a worry. In between my presentation, I'll be still flashing the QR code. So without further ado, let's go to the main presentation proper. Okay, just like to know if you're able to see my presentation or you're still staring at the QR code. Okay, just give me a second. Give me a second. Okay. Presentation now? Okay, thank you so much. So we're going to talk about immersive learning. And yes, the subtitle of my presentation is Storm Chasing. So, okay, sorry, it refused. Okay. So allow me, just give me a few seconds to go into my techie stuff. I would like to introduce this word to you known as technology affordance. Let me unpack and explain to you in very simple terms. Technology affordance refers to a certain learned behavior or a certain skill, or even a certain idea that developed or you could learn just because you use a technology. Able to follow me? I will revisit this definition shortly, but technology affordance means a desired behavior, an idea or a learning that occurs as a result of our technology use. So actually, this follows quite closely to what Dr. Penny had shared earlier, meaningful and purposeful use of technology. All right, so next. Okay, so for those of us who have not scanned, this is your next opportunity to scan the QR code. We'll be going to the first activity very shortly. All right, so next one. Okay, so let me take you through today's presentation. I would like to call it a journey. I'd like to take you through a journey as though you are part of the immersive learning. So here's the journey that we're going to go through. First, I'll take you through what immersive learning is. Then we will straight away assume the role of a natural explorer. Okay. After that, we will go storm chasing. We will end the whole storm chasing experience by being a newsreader. Okay, so it's almost quite close to what Dr. Towndrow had shown earlier about digital storytelling, but the only slight difference is I'm going to take it as an immersive experience, something that us parents or guardians or caregivers can do to create that learning space at home, such that even at home, immersive learning starts at home first. rather than our children going out to experience learning on their own, but something that we can start, a good behavior that we can actually mimic or model at home first. All right, so what is immersive learning? So to do this, can I now ask for you to look at your mobile phones? I'm going to stop screen share for a little while, and going to show you what I am seeing right now. Okay. So pardon me, there's a lot of switching between screens. Bear with me for a little while. Okay. All right, so which of the following best describe what immersive learning is to you? No right or wrong answer, just treat it as a poll. All right, just treat it as a poll. Okay, so we have quite a fair bit, close to 70, more than 63% who says that immersive learning involves, for instance, outdoor learning in the garden, right? No right or wrong answers, but I'm actually very encouraged with what the results we are seeing here, that most of us has choose outdoor learning in the garden. Truth is, both are different forms of immersive learning. Learning with VR goggles is as immersive as outdoor learning in the garden. Why? So once again, I hope I'm not giving you a headache. I'm going to go back to the presentation right now. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the, I really genuinely hope that I'm not giving you a headache with the screen changes. Okay, so just give me a moment. Let me throw this back up. Just a moment. Okay. Okay, so I just need an indication. Are you able to see, or you're just seeing? Okay, just one more moment. So sorry about it. Here we go. Are you able to see the slides right now? Okay, then officially, okay, or through empirical data, in an academic wise, immersive learning can be interpreted this way. It can be defined as a learning that occurs in an environment where the subject or the topic appears or plays out naturally, very frequently and intensively. Okay, so that's why learning with a VR goggle, as well as going out to the garden to find out about flowers, is both are as immersive as it can be. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, okay, let's look at these three pictures. We have the Eiffel Tower, the Great Wall of China, and a backdrop of Tokyo with Mount Fuji in the background. So immersive learning can also be thought of as the environment where learning occurs, where hearing, for example, in terms of language speaking, hearing, thinking, and speaking in a place where the topic skill is naturally everywhere. You're just immersed in the topic. For example, France, French, China, Chinese, Japan, Japanese. So much so, why is it considered immersive? Because you hear Japanese, you think Japanese, you speak Japanese everywhere you go. Very immersive, very intensive. Okay, so then there's also a second aspect of immersive learning, the role-playing, the identity part. As a result of me speaking in French in France or Paris, for instance, I'm part of the French-speaking community, speaking Chinese in Beijing, Chinese-speaking community, speaking Japanese in Tokyo, part of the Japanese-speaking community. So that's the immersion. So traditionally, immersive learning refers to a student being placed in an environment where that idea or that skill is naturally occurring all around you. You got no choice but to pick up or learn, think, drink, sleep in that idea. Okay, so with that in mind, let us go to our first learning journey. So can we do immersive learning at home? Possible, but let's bear in mind, because we are working with very, very young children, any form of learning has to be administered, planned, or organized by parents or a caregiver. Do not leave the child alone to learn, especially when they're alone. Okay, to make this purposeful, let's go on a natural exploring. So the context, I'm building the environment here. The environment here, we're going to go on a natural exploring tour. So therefore, the role that our children are going to give them an identity is we will see our children as explorers. Okay, so how do we make this an immersive learning activity? The tools that we need is, in this instance, mobile phone. I will demonstrate to you how we can use Google image search. And then there's a social platform now for adults. If you want to enhance our children learning in an immersive learning way, what we can consider as such platform is, for example, the Natural Society of Singapore's own nature sighting project. So I'm going to show this to you again very quickly. I'm going to show you the next slide first, and then we'll move back into. So I think Penny spoke about butterflies moments back. So this actually dovetails what Dr. Towndrow has said about digital storying. My son and I have a habit of using a mobile phone, not to make movies, but to snap pictures of caterpillars and butterfly. So it started off as just a very simple project of using mobile phone, snapping every butterfly and caterpillar species that we can come. Now that habit of us actually transformed into a lifelong, I call it a lifelong habit now. So what my son does is each time he snaps a picture of a different caterpillar species, he will bring the caterpillar home, breed it, take pictures, snap pictures of it through its various stages. So what you see here are my own collection, one part of it. So you see the caterpillar in two different stages, from the grayish patch to the near is going to go into the green caterpillar when it's going to stop eating and weave itself into a cocoon very soon, and then the various stages of the butterfly. All right, so I'm going to stop my presentation here for a little while. You're not going to see slides. All right, so one moment. I hope I'm not making you dizzy with all this. Stop, share, and share. But what I want to generally show you is how we can create this immersive learning experience on our own, okay, using our own technology. Now, I hope you're staring at Google Images. Can someone give me an indication? Yes, I see myself on YouTube. Yes, Google Images. So what happens is, so I'm going through Google in a very different platform. Notice my URL, say images.google.com. Some of you might already be familiar with this. So what my son usually does is he will go into Google Images. So, and then with the pictures here, snap of a caterpillar species or a butterfly species, he will upload his photograph for the day, and immediately Google image will tell him what species is it. Here we have the common line butterfly. Are you able to see my screen? All right, so with this, he's able to see a common line butterfly. So what Mommy does is, because of this, he wanted to find out more about the habitat, the living habits of the line butterfly. I became a member of the Nature Society iNaturalist website. So what members does is they will actually submit their butterflies observation. For example, 2 years ago, we found a slightly rare palm king species. I submitted it, and members of the Nature Society gave us the scientific name, okay, as well as provided us with information of where the butterflies can be spotted on the island. To this day, the palm king can only be spotted at the southern tip in the north, close to the northern tip of Singapore Island. All right, so then now that said, let us go back to WooClap. All right, so I've just shown you a picture of a butterfly. So I'm going to show this to you once again. Very quickly, this is a, what species is this? I'm going to give it a try, or wait a little while to see the answers, and then hop on the wagon of popular is the most answer. So this butterfly. So what is this species? Okay, so I see several responses for this common line. Let me show you your answer through your mobile phone. Okay, so is it the correct answer is it is the common line butterfly. Okay, so let me bring you back. Okay. So I hope you are still with me, feeling dizzy already. Still okay? I hope still okay. Right? Okay. So that we have seen the first immersion that can take place. Very simply, is done using very simple technology, the camera function of our mobile phones, and then submitting our pictures onto Google Images and harnessing the power of technology to tell us what species of the butterfly, being part of the community that tells us where this butterfly could be further spotted. So what I'm trying to show you here is Google Images do not just work with butterflies. You can actually use it to submit flower species, and even tree species as well. Because of the technology used, we are encouraging curiosity, scientific way of making observation, discovery, analysis, and having that parent-child communication. What species do you think it is? Where can we find this butterfly? And that love for nature. So what happens in my son's case is because of this use of technology, he absolutely loves going into the outdoors. You can find him among the bushes because he's trying to find another caterpillar species. All right, so next is we're going to go on a storm chasing. This is the one that my colleague said I've jinxed the weather today. I shouldn't have made predictions that it will rain today. And yes, I will actually show you the apps that I've used to make the weather prediction today. So activity suggestion number 2 goes on this way. The identity, so the context, the social context is we're going to see this as our child being a storm chaser, finding out about the weather to make predictions. So what we need for this is a mobile device, and if possible, also a step tracker. The tools that I've used, the technological tools I use for this activity will be the NEA weather app and Zoom Earth. So without showing you the slide first, I would actually like to show you both apps. So I'm going to bring the apps all the way. Okay, so bear with me once again. I think you understand the drift right now. Do you need a breather? I'm changing screen so much that I'm actually worried if I'm making anyone dizzy. Okay, able to see what I'm seeing right now. So what I have here is NEA's website. I actually have got the app version. The app version is actually very cool because it tells you where you can find rain, where in Singapore you have got a higher lightning strike occurrence, and the weather prediction for the next few days. Okay, so I'm going to show you the tools first, but I'm going to explain the learning in social context very shortly. So this is NEA's website. And the second tool I'm going to show to you right now is known as Zoom Earth. Okay, so ready? So this is Zoom Earth. Are you looking at the eye of the typhoon right now? This is occurring live before us. Okay, so what I use this is usually for my students and even for my own nephew and son. I use this to explain about wind directions and where the typhoon is right now. So according to this, Japan is facing a very terrible storm right now. Can you see the eye of the storm? All right, so now let me go back to the presentation once again. Okay, let me go back to the presentation. So I have shown to you 2 apps that I've used for this purpose. Now, I usually turn it into a social event or very family-driven event with my students and even the children in my care by asking a simple question: will it rain today? Will it rain today? And then I demonstrate the use of the apps where you can actually predict not just today, but tomorrow, next day. Then I will add on such questions as this. Can you help mommy check if it's going to rain? Can I shine my clothes today? How far are we from the destination, from when it's going to rain? How long does it take for us to reach? Can we shine our laundry? Is today a great day for a picnic, or is today the perfect day, the cool day to have a nice warm pot of curry? Where is the typhoon right now? So it's actually the human aspect, the family aspect that make immersive learning so much more interesting and meaningful. Okay, so what we are encouraging here is curiosity, observation, discovery, problem solving, and even adapting to change. If it rains today, can we change the picnic to something else? Following me so far? Do you need a short brief there? Okay, finally, last part. So I promise to keep the time. All right, news reporting, mainly to cap up, to give a nice finale to our nature exploring. So we have the nature exploring, and then we have the storm chasing. So to top up that learning experience, or that immersive learning experience, what I usually like to do is to end the whole experience with some reading material. All right, so it's still very adult driven, very caregiver driven, very guardian, parental supported experience. So usually what I would do is I would choose learning resources that I can actually read together with my children or students in my care. So what are some resources I use for this to drive the immersive learning experience? So here I will give the identity of newsreader to our children. And the technology that we need is here, tablet or laptop, smartphone. More often than not, I will use Edge browser and even the NLB app. Let me demonstrate to you why. Okay, so just a moment. Okay, oops, I forgot to activate the sound. Okay, so let's say I've got this article from Channel News Asia, okay, that talks about plant. At the top right-hand corner, you will see this little icon that looks like a book with a speaker. I usually use this to go through to purposefully select articles, for example, related to nature, related to storm chasing. The moment I click on this, it converts the news article into a reader-friendly platform. Okay, for older children, I will go one step ahead, click on the grammar tools, and for example, switch on the verbs icon such that my child or my students will know what a verb is. Then I'll click on the reading aloud. I'll just show this a little bit to you.
Living the plant-based life, growing appetite for vegan food in Singapore. It's not as hard to adopt a vegan diet now compared to before, with more options, awareness and support, says an organization that helps people.
Okay, so I hope through that short display of immersive reader, we have an idea of how to use immersive reader online, but more importantly, why the usage of immersive reader. Let me show it to you right now. Okay, so here we go. The usage of the immersive reader is to make, for example, reading as an easily accessible activity, reading as a family-supported activity, and also reading as a 21st century habit. Instead of directly going back and reading the book as a hard-printed copy, we want to create an immersive environment where around the child they can hear a book being read, they can see a book being read. And because of that, it drives interest that, you know what, I really want to have the hard copy book in my hand to read. So can you imagine, we started with the journey with Nature Explorer, picking up butterfly samples and then going on the map to locate for the different butterflies that can be found on the island, and ending off with a book that reads to you what butterfly is. That is the bit of immersion that I hope to share with you today. Something that we can do at home that's purposeful, that because of technology, the child actually wants to spend less time on technology to go out, for example, to find the actual butterfly species. Because of technology, I want to talk to mommy and daddy or grandma and grandpa more about the butterfly or the incoming storm that I predict will occur. So with that, I hope I have shown to you that how we can link our experiences together to bring about observation, exploration, and showing to us what immersive learning is. So let me redefine what immersive learning is. I actually see immersive learning as a family-driven, as a family activity that can be enriched with, because of technology use, the child wants to go to the garden. Because of technology use, the child is actually observing changes in the sky to see if it's going to be sunny or raining next moment. And very simply, immersive learning as an family activity where caregivers or guardians or parents can role model appropriate technology use, not the usage of technology solely for gaming or watching YouTube, but rather using technology to find out more about the environment we are in, to learn more about, for example, a butterfly species or the magnitude, the wind direction of a storm. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the brief, but sometimes a little bit dizzy experience of switching between screens and storm chasing. So that's all I have for you today. Grace, feeling all right? Have I made you dizzy as well?
Thank you, Sucha. No, it was so interesting. I was looking at the typhoon and I was so impressed, and I was just watching it move around and around. I was thinking, oh my gosh, it's actually happening in real life right now. That's so special. Yeah. So thank you so much, Sucha, for that interesting sharing, that immersive learning actually can be learning that occurs in any environment. And also for those helpful suggestions for conversation starters that parents and caregivers can use to extend the learning and even encourage problem-solving skills. I really like the idea that they can wonder about the weather, which is something that parents and caregivers can do every day. Just ask the child, what do you think? Is it going to rain today? And then you can check the app and see, and that already helps them to sort of make that kind of guess, is it going to happen, and see if it really happens. So thank you very much. So participants, you can continue to drop any questions if you have for Sucha or any of our other speakers into the chat box. So right now, I would like to invite all our panelists back on screen so that we can begin our Q&A session. We have some questions that have been lined up in the chat. First, I would really like to thank all of you for all the amazing discussions and ideas that were shared here today. I believe that everyone would agree with me that these discussions about technology in education were very informative and engaging. So let's have a look at our first question. Okay, any suggestions on how I can go about in starting digital storytelling with my 4-year-old son? So maybe Dr. Philip, would you like to take this question?
Sure. It's an interesting question, and let me answer it like this. Stories are a part of our lives, and they have been since the beginning of time. We've used stories to entertain, to pass information, to educate ourselves and to entertain ourselves, sort of right from the beginning of humanity, really. So storytelling is a part of our lives, and there are stories everywhere. The question is, what can we tell stories about? Well, in that example that I gave, a story was told about a day of going bowling, of doing something that was a part of everyday life, and it was just something that we do naturally. And so why not turn something that we do all of the time into a story? So you could make a story about making breakfast, about eating lunch. You can make a story about going for a bike ride, or going on the MRT. It could be anything. The question is, really, is how do you start? So let's say, for example, we want to make a story about, in fact, I did this. I made a story about making a cheese sandwich once. How do you go about that? Well, some people might think, okay, well, let's do it the way that they do it in school. So, we sit down with a piece of paper and we start to write out our ideas and sort of maybe come up with a few sentences or a paragraph or some bullet points or something. But sometimes that's not the best way to generate ideas, because it's too academic, and not everybody, really thinks about the stories that they want to tell in that way. So maybe writing is not the best way to get started on some stories. Sometimes it's better, and I've done this with children in school where I've done research studies, is we start by drawing. Do a drawing of an idea that you have, or take a photograph of something that you're interested in, like a butterfly, for example, and then try and make a story from that. And so, really the idea generation can be, in some senses, what I would call, multimodal. Don't always think about writing, but think about maybe a picture, or think about a drawing, think about some experience that you've had, and then try to put them together in some way that can tell a story. So I think that four-year-old boys would have a great deal of things that they would want to tell stories about. The toys that they play with, the people that they meet, the television programs that they watch, the food that they like, anything could be the subject of a story that you might want to build up, as you go through your sort of daily lives.
That's interesting, Dr. Philip. Just wondering, from myself, I was just thinking, would there be like maybe a minimum, like an age group where, that you could recommend that they can actually start doing this kind of digital storytelling with their children, where the children can also play a part in the content of the story? Would you recommend any age group?
Well, I think that there are two considerations here. I mean, obviously, once you can walk and talk, I think that you can start to do these kinds of things more easily, than if you're a baby in arms. So, there is that. I mean, also the other thing is that if you want to give your children or a child that you're working with the responsibility of, holding a camera or a telephone or doing those kinds of things, they need to have, the motor skills in order to do that. But once you can, then I think it's an open field, and I think that I don't know what the minimum age would be, but I guess that that for a 4-year-old, it's obviously something that I think is very approachable. Yes. Indeed.
I think it would be wonderful to capture all those memories into little stories, and they can actually look back on it. Yes. And share it with others even. That'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Philip. Let's have a look at our next question. Okay, it's coming in. What would you recommend if I would like to watch or use screen time for my own pleasure? Example, for horror movies, but my children are always stuck to me. So judging by your smile, Dr. Penny, I think you will probably be taking this one. Okay, Dr. Penny, would you like to take this question?
I mean, it's a very good question, because I mean, like in my house, like I'm very much into the Marvel movies, Star Wars and everything else. I'm very much into that. And obviously some of them can be quite violent or quite aggressive, like I said, but Deadpool is where I draw the line. It's way too much gore. But so one of the things which we usually do at home is, if we want to watch it, then we watch it after the kids go to bed. I do admit that my kids probably go to bed a lot earlier than I think most kids. Usually by 8, they're in the room, 8:30 they're out. So that's when we get to watch scary movies if we want. It is very difficult, because sometimes, it's especially if it's really young children, then I either just have to forgo it, or I wait until they fall asleep. But again, it really depends on each family, because some parents, they don't mind it. They feel like, oh, it's a learning opportunity. They can explain to the children, this is just TV, this is not reality. So I think it really also is dependent on how the parents couch it, their own personal level of comfort. So like my children get very scared when they watch, these kinds of violent things, but they can watch an animal documentary and the lion's like ripping the deer apart and they're yelling, yeah, the lion's got lunch, hooray for the lion, or for the deer, but yay. So I think it's, personally and professionally, I do recommend that we just be mindful of how much, especially if it's a horror show, how horrible it is, especially because, young kids, they don't have that concept of what's real and what's not. And, if it's ghost in particular. So do be mindful. If you are concerned, I would say, especially if it's something like really restricted, then watch it when they're asleep, if you can. But otherwise, try to get them doing some other activity in another room and tell them this is really scary, but make something else more fun. Or purposefully plan them to watch their own thing in their own bedroom, and then you can watch your scary stuff somewhere else.
Thank you, Dr. Benny. Yeah, I think I agree with you. There's definitely going to be two schools of thoughts on this, and parents definitely have a say what they can share. But I think it's nice how you reminded us as well that it is important when they watch something to just discuss with the child as well. What are you watching? If it was a horror movie, maybe okay, it's not real, so that we also have a common understanding with the children, I guess. So thank you very much for that. Okay, let's look at the next question. Okay, I am not good at technology, but I want my children to try immersive learning. Can I let them try on their own, or can you advise how I can manage if I don't know? So, Suchia, would you like to take this question?
A very good question. Thank you, Grace. Thank you so much for raising this question. You don't need to be a technology expert to do immersive learning, mainly because I would like to draw your attention, or maybe to help you focus more, that the purpose of immersive learning is, let me put it in a simple way, technology does not take over the teacher, technology does not take over the learning, and in our case, the guardian or the parent who is creating this immersive. One simple immersive learning you can do is just using the mobile phone to take pictures. It is good enough. So using, for example, the example that I've shown just now, it can start out something simple. For instance, each time you see a butterfly, you take a snapshot on your mobile phone, and then having the rich discussion with your child. Do you think these two caterpillars or these three caterpillars are the same? For caterpillar A, where did we find it? Oh, we found it on the lime tree. So most likely it's a lime butterfly caterpillar. Then the second caterpillar, we found it, for example, in a rose bush. So perhaps this caterpillar belongs to a butterfly that feeds on the leaf of the rose bush. So that is it's the conversation, it's the very authentic family conversations that we have with our children that makes it immersive. So I would actually highly recommend just using the camera function alone as a start, using the mobile phone to take, for example, different plant species, different leaves. What my son and my nephews used to love when they were much younger is I used to bring them to the garden, and with the mobile phone, I tell, go take pictures of 5 leaves that is different. So they were returned with pictures. Oh, is that mommy? And then, oh, aunt, I found 5 different leaves of different colors, different shape. That itself is immersive, because suddenly you're in an environment where technology helps you to focus on what is around you, to think in the way, for example, now I'm thinking in terms of flowers, I'm thinking in terms of leaves. So it's actually doable. Next is, this is something very personal. I'm going to share with you a second example that's very personal. I don't think you can find it in books, but now I'm going to share with you my experience as a mother. And I found out this in a very serendipitous or accidental way. When my son was much younger, I like to take audio recording of his voice. So it started off with the baby sound, like ooh, ooh, ah, very baby sound. And then finally his first words, the first sentence that he made, and then finally to his first oral presentation in school. So actually I've got recording of him speaking in different occasions. Sometimes I secretly film him singing in the car. Oh. So recently I actually played some of this recording to my son, and his first response actually jotted me out. Even as a learning designer, it jotted me, because he said, "Mommy, do you realize that there are changes in my voice?" That itself is also a form of immersive learning, because of that audio tool or that sound recording that was done in a very low-tech sound recording device known as my mobile phone. He's actually learning that, the human body or even our voice box goes through changes as we grow. So can you imagine the next time round, for example, you heard a bird chirping at night and you recorded the sound. That was how I found out that the bird chirping I hear at night near where I sleep is actually the sound of a nightjar. Then it was also because of the sound recording I did on my mobile phone. I realized there's a difference between a cricket and a cicada. A cicada sings in the morning, but a cricket sings at night, nocturnal, just by recording. So my advice to keep things simple is do not think about advanced technology. Think of how you can actually use technology because you want to have that conversation with your child, or because of that usage of technology, the child will be interested in the environment around them, the real actual learning, the real plant, the real butterfly, the real sound. So then I think that will be very meaningful. I come from the school of thought where if I use technology, it should actually allow the child to want to learn more, to go out to touch the real stuff, rather than technology replacing actual learning experiences. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Suchi, I think that, well, that is really good. Like to just think about just starting with photos or even sounds, and definitely to extend it into the outdoors as well. So I think that was a very good answer. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we're coming quite close to the time. Maybe we can do one more question. So how can I do a personal or digital story with more than one child and have different interests, or who have all different interests? So Dr. Philip, maybe would you like to take this question?
Well, I mean, interesting. It becomes either it's a problem to be solved, or, and there is no immediate solution, or actually it's an opportunity. Is that there is always, for example, more than one way, for example, of looking at something. Somebody is interested in food, somebody else is interested in sports. So why not try and make a story about the kinds of food that you can eat when you go to a sports event? I don't know. Some people like fashion. Other people like to go bowling, or I don't know. So maybe you can think about the different things that people wear when they go bowling, or the different things that you can do. I don't know. What I do know is this, is that there's always a way really of trying to tell a story about something that doesn't always occur to us right at the very beginning. The idea generation is something that is sort of truly creative, and nobody, not even myself, has in some senses a real idea about the things that we want to find out until we start actually doing them. So it's I mean, one part of my advice is to say, just get started and see what happens. Or another thing would be to say, okay, if you've got two children with different interests, well then we'll do one child one day and one child another. Somebody can be responsible for the camera one day, somebody can be responsible for the voiceover on another. Both people can be involved in taking photographs. One child might be able to learn something from another child, and you never know what will happen. But I think the thing to do would be to really get started on something. Try to, as Sue Cheer is reminding us constantly, is to try to have that conversation. Talk about different interests. See if there are things that are common to both children, or if you can't find something that is common, maybe you can talk about the differences. How is it that you have different views and different interests about things, and make a story about that. Families are all about diversity and variation, and maybe that would be a good topic for a story that you could make. Is I have a number of children, they all have different interests. This is what happens when we go out together, and this is how we try to keep everybody busy and active and interested in different ways, depending on what it is that they like to do.
The sky's the limit, right?
Yeah.
So is Dr. Penny and Sucha, would you like to share any of your thoughts based on this a question in relation to the topics that the both of you shared today? Do you have any thoughts to share? If they have children of different interests, maybe they would like to do some purposeful screen time, but everybody wants to watch something different. Or for Sucha, if there's immersive learning, but all the children are, wanting to do something different. Do y'all have any thoughts to share on that?
Do you want to go first, Sucha?
Okay, sure. Besides taking turns, well, I think it's exactly how Dr. Taundraw has said, we can actually take turns. Some and then do voice recording and some and then do video. But how I would actually go about this is, let's say if we use the media of a video, there is at least a good, let's say a good size video is around 1 minute to 3 minutes. I would actually divide, maybe allow me to use a little bit of Chinese term, koko. Big brother can do the first 2 minutes, and then Mei or Titi can do, younger sibling can do the last few minutes. So that way is quite an interesting, everybody has got a share. And then I had a similar experience. I did a video like this before with my nephew and my son. So we did almost like a BBC Earth approach. They absolutely love BBC. So it's like the children around me, exactly how Penny has put it out, that they're afraid of horror films, but they have no doubts about watching BBC Earth again and again and again and again. So what I do is in this mini digital storytelling, right? Every child is in charge of a segment, almost like a news anchor, in charge of a segment of their own with their own topic. But when we put together, we call it our own documentary. So, and then I also use it as a learning opportunity where I say that, in a production, there's many roles, there's many responsibilities, and I use it as a way. That's why you need to cooperate and work together if you want to have a good outcome. So if Coco is better in video shooting, go ahead and do video shooting. And then if Titi or Mei is actually better in doing voiceover and would like to try out taking still shots and turn it into a stop motion, go ahead. But when we piece it together, it's like a combined effort. So actually from there, to me, the greater social or the greater learning outcome is children as a result of that learn how to cooperate, know how to have a taste of what we call collaborative learning. Because of us learning together, we are putting different skills together to have a different learning outcome. And number 3 is the social experience, that learning is not an individual process, but it's a social process because of producing, never mind the outcome turns out a little bit haywire or looking like a misfit jigsaw puzzle. It's okay, but it's the coming together, spending time together as a family, spending time together as friends that makes learning so enriching. So I'm not too worried about the outcome, but more of kids coming together and learning together as a result of technology. I hope that is a worthy input from my side. Penny, your turn.
Mine, I think, is just a quick one. I think both Philip and Sucha really got the nail on the head. It's really about, you do different things. You find the same topic. Today we're doing this, but you're interested in this aspect, you're interested in the other aspect. Let's enhance both. I mean, as a parent of young children, the thing I hear, one of the things that annoys us the most and drives us batty, it's not fair. That's the biggest thing that we always say. It's not fair, but he got 2 minutes, he got that. It goes on. But what I do is, like sometimes parents, we just have to be a bit drama. Really just drama it up a bit. Say, whoa, but yours is so cool. Oh, but his is so fun. And then just pull it all together. And like Sue and Philip says, it's really just about the joint activity, the discussion, the fun, the engagement that everyone does together. The outcome, unless you're not aiming it to be, for a prize or anything, it's really just the whole process that's a lot more enjoyable. So yeah, so sometimes we do have to be a bit more drama just to act it up a little bit, be the rah-rah team. But yeah, I think that's really how it's just getting everyone's interest together.
Yes, definitely. It's all the memories that they're going to make that will really stay with the children, I think, right? And parents, I believe you just have to get the conversation starting and just try, and it will bring you somewhere. So I would thank you very much, Dr. Philip, Dr. Penny, and Sucha. Now I would like to invite Ms. Chen from NLB to share a few book recommendations that are relevant to our panel topic today. Ms. Chen?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Grace, and thank you, speakers, for the insightful sharing. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Luo Jia, an early read librarian with the National Library Board. I'm here today to recommend 3 books to you, and I hope they will empower you with the information and skill sets to connect with your child in this digital age. Are our children living a new childhood different from ours? Or perhaps parents here grow up with learning and playing games that do not require much devices or screen time. And while with advancements in the technology, availability of digital devices, our children today are introduced to technology and digital devices at an earlier age, be it for educational learning or for leisure play. So parents may wonder, how much screen time should be given? And will digital devices cause my child to become antisocial? How do I stay connected with my child? So well, here are the books that I would like to share. The first book, The New Childhood, Raising Kids to Thrive in a Connected World by Jordan Shapiro. It provides a positive and encouraging look at how parents can navigate the new digital landscape of childhood, using technology to engage our children, helping them to learn and grow. And the author provides concrete and practical advice for parents to think critically, intentionally about how we can and should adjust our habits and expectations to prepare our children in the new childhood. So like what Dr. Penny said earlier, screen time is not that bad. In fact, it's just about finding the balance. So the second book, The Connected Parent, An Expert Guide to Parenting in a Digital World by John Frey and Ask Yourself. It tackles the many questions and concerns of parents in the digital age, going through topics of screen time, safety of our children, physically and psychologically, addiction and behaviors, and it just provide research and evidence for parents to make informed choices to be a connected parent, not just for online experiences, but actually for both online and offline. So understanding the environments that our children are interacting with one another. And if you're feeling overwhelmed with technology, with the many concerns and discussions of raising a child in the digital age, I hope the last book, The 3 M's of Fearless Digital Parenting by Carrie Rogers Whitehead, can help to ease your concerns. The author reassures that every generation has their own fears. It's normal for parents to be afraid for their child's well-being and development. So when parents are not informed enough about technology or the developmental age that the child is in, the expectations for their children may become unrealistic. Hence, this book looks at the 3 M's of digital parenting framework, sharing the research and strategies with parents for the different developmental stages, model for ages 0 to 8, manage for ages 8 to 13, and monitor for ages 13 to 18. So parents, you can do this. Let's be fearless digital parents. So feel free to take a screenshot of the book recommendations. You can scan the QR code to find an available copy at the public libraries or check out the ebook version. So next, I would like to draw your attention to this huge QR code on the screen. All right, or you can also just visit go.gov.sg/earlyread-raising readers for life. So basically, this QR code and this link will bring you to a list of resources for your children that are suitable for children aged 0 to 6 years old. There are book recommendations, activities, videos, and so much more. All right, and you will also be introduced to the different early read programs that are suitable for your child. So the programs can be held at physical spaces at the public libraries, or they can also be held online. All right, and if you'd like to subscribe to our early read mailing list, you can also do so via the same QR code, the same link, and you will be informed and updated of the upcoming programs and resources available. All right, so thank you so much for your time. Back to you, Grace.
Thank you, Luo Jia. So sorry, so we have a question that Sucha would just like to give a very quick reply to from Miss Evie about a link that she was asking. So Sucha, if you would like to just answer that before we end.
Thank you so much, Grace, for giving me the time. Miss Evie, I would actually like to take on your question. The reader that I've used just now is known as Immersive Reader. It is an embedded function that you can find on all Edge, which is the browser, which is a web browser. So it's that little small like icon on the top right hand corner on Edge, the browser, that looks like a little book. Mainly because Immersive Reader came about because there was this move by Edge to make reading a shared experiences even with children of special needs. So it's something that we can use with readers of all different needs as well. So it's called Immersive Reader. If you don't happen to see my reply on YouTube today, just keep in mind it's called Immersive Reader. You can do a search on it, but it's an embedded function that you can find at the top right-hand corner of all Edge browser. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Thank you very much, Suchia. I hope that answers, maybe all of you can also try out the Immersive Reader. So as we come to the close of this panel, I would like to thank all of you for taking your time out of your schedules to join us here today. I hope all the panels in this parental conference has enlightened you and empowered you as parents or caregivers to be adequately equipped to guide each of your children while celebrating their individual characteristics and needs. As you role model or facilitate activities to engage your child, may each of you embrace your own individuality and all the wonderful qualities you as parents and caregivers bring to your children. It truly takes a village to raise our children, and we as PCF will always put our utmost effort into supporting you and your children in this wonderful life journey. Thank you everyone for being here over these past 2 days. If you have missed any of the panels or would like to re-watch or revisit some of the strategies and topics discussed, do look out for the videos of all the 4 panels, which will be uploaded on YouTube in about a week's time. Once again, thank you, Dr. Penny, Dr. Philip, Suchia, and Ms. Chen for sharing your knowledge and time with us today. We wish everyone a wonderful week ahead. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.